I'm DigiBro. You're in the rant hole where my patrons who give me $15 a month or more suggest me stuff to rant about, and then I rant about it. If you want to be one of those people, go ahead and go to the Patreon. You'll have your rant at the end of next month. Today's is from Andrew Soto, who says, if I'm not mistaken, in one of your Pokemon Coliseum Let's Plays, you mentioned investing as something you should be doing, but don't. The conversation changed direction before you made your stance clear, so what's up with investing? Okay. We need to talk about money and how money works, because I think that most people, the average person, their perception of money is, I work and I get paid. And that's all there is to it. The amount of work you put in and the quality of the job you're doing, as in like how well paying is the job, controls how much money you make. But this is not really how money works, because there's really no reason it would be based on that. Like, it's easy to think of it like, I provide a service to somebody else, they provide me in return money. However, what anything is worth is completely subjective. What your time is worth, what the things you own are worth, and what money is worth are all subjective. Money, it changes in value all the time. You can have cases where, let's say you save up a whole lot of money when you're young, and then you're 80 and you're like, I'm going to retire on all that money I saved up, but guess what? That money's not worth as much anymore because of inflation. Now, it's possible that from you having it in the bank or in some kind of investment fund, you were accruing extra money on top of that as, because when the bank holds your money, they pay you for having your money in their bank. They give you extra, which is why having a savings account is a good idea. But investing requires you to really break apart your understanding of money and how it works and approach it differently. You have to think of money as something that has an ebb and flow, and that you are trying to surf the tide of money, so to speak. It's not so much about grinding work away and getting the best possible job. It's more about looking at how money works and figuring out how to get it for yourself. Now, for most people, they don't want to have an overly complicated relationship with money. I certainly don't. I'm not really like a fan of having to constantly be worried about how much money I have, what's in my account, what do things cost. Like, I don't really budget that well, I'd rather just make a lot of money by making things I like and be able to spend it. However, there's a lot of ways that you can take some of your extra money, and if you have any, this is really hard to do if you don't have any extra money. If you're somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck, investing is extremely difficult. But if you've got, let's say, $30 sitting around, and there's a chance that you could spend that money on something that is going to appreciate in value and then just have more money later, that's just free money, basically. And there's people whose entire job is just directing money around. In fact, it's a common profession, that's what stock trading is just professionally moving money. And investments, they don't have to be gigantic risks. I mean, any investment is a risk insofar as everything is a risk. Being alive is a risk. Having a regular job is a huge risk, because there are so many ways that it can fuck up and leave you in the dust. Even if you are working for a company for decades and you're deeply, embedded into it, it doesn't matter, because when things go belly up, you never know what's going to happen when things go wrong. So making investments is scary because you don't necessarily know that you're going to have the money, or even if you do know that, you might not have it in time. Everybody wants to have the money now and not later. But like, to use the episode of Atlanta that talks about this as an example, where, one character tells another, like, I can get you 10 times the money you just made on that paycheck, but you're not going to get it for another 4 months. Because what he does is he buys a sword with it that he knows somebody else wants, who has this really good, purebred dog, and he trades this sword for this dog, and then once the dog has puppies, they sell the puppies, and individually the puppies are worth more, collectively the puppies are worth more than the sword was, and so once all that transaction has happened, the money comes back and you have more than you started with. You just didn't have it at the time you wanted it, which is always now. Everybody wants their money now. But if you can find a way to have that money eventually, multiply itself through just the system that it's placed into, and something like, like that, I mean, you could call it flipping, just, for instance, Tom is a huge fan of this one creator, I can't fucking remember his name, who's started up this show where he goes to yard sales and just finds things that are worth more than the people realize they're worth, buys up a bunch of stuff, resells it, and it doesn't have to be huge margins. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I found a rare fucking Barbie doll I'm going to sell for $1,000 on eBay. It's like you can find something worth $2, sell it for $10, but if you do a whole lot of that, it adds up quickly, and again, you're just flipping, you're just making money out of money, essentially. And I think that everybody could do some of this if they set aside some time and some money for it. There is, on some level, you could be increasing how much you have, and the more you have, the easier it is to have more. Money is like a snowball. It constantly builds on itself unless you fuck up. So as long as you have more money that you can invest, you can have bigger turnarounds. So let's say you've got that $2 Barbie you sell for $10. You spend that $10 on something you sell for $50. You spend that $50 on something you sell for $200, and you could just keep snowballing it until you've got way more money than you started with. Sort of a red paperclip fable of money trading. And I think that it is always a smart choice to involve yourself with this, just so that you have multiple revenue sources, so that you have, I like having money show up out of the blue to me, because currently, like, the way I operate is I just rely on my Patreon, and I consider that how much I'm making, and then anything I get from alternative revenue sources is just like, whoa, where did this money come from, And that's the money that I could probably go and then do something with. But you really have to understand your budget well enough to do this, and, like, understand how much you have to invest with. And that's where I've run into problems, is that my financial situation is in such disarray and chaos right now that investing and doing research on how to invest just hasn't been a priority. But something I'd like to get into. Anyways, next rant.